This is the problem with Elon. I love the future stuff as much as anyone, but then you have these completely fanciful, small world, Epcot Center demos. They do say it's teleoperated, but you know and I know that they're doing it for the clip that you're going to put on social media, and it just looks like you have a robot serving a beer or something.
We're not fooled by any of this, Sam, so I'm focused on what was impressive, and the thing that was impressive is the robotics. Haters be haters, but you have to look at the Optimus robotics. I think it has 22 degrees of motions in the hands. They might have been being operated remotely, but we've never seen robots of this quality and capacity.
Well, I did, and it's the Small World ride at Disney World.
Why, hello, friends. What's cooking? Welcome to another week of More or Less.
Sam's here.
Wow.
I'm here.
Sam. Hello.
Sam
Hi.
is actually here. I mean, Sam is...
I'm as here as I ever am.
We missed you last week.
I like how our new editors spliced Sam in even though he wasn't there.
They
last
did?
time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where?
Where?
Watch the intro video on YouTube.
Yeah, the edit there was you were like a YouTuber spliced in. It was, we've got some fancy new editing.
Wow, we can't escape him. No, it's great. Well, that's a great way to announce
Upgraded.
we have we're trying out some new editing stuff. So all you close watchers out there, send any and all feedback.
Yeah, sorry if the audio was a little bit weird last week. We're getting it fixed.
Dave is we're all particular about different things. Dave is very particular about
I'm
the
not
audio.
particular about anything.
I could say
Maybe.
you could use a little bit more lighting today, Sam. But other than that, you sound good.
Believe it or not, I did actually leave a lighting thing in this house, but I don't know where. It's the classic problem.
It's in
Which
my.
means I'll
I
just-
think I have a clip in my closet on the
means I'll
upper
just
shelf.
order another on Amazon, because when you can't find things in closet, you just buy more, and then you end up with more shit.
I realized I have 4 steamers today.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the deep secrets to Amazon is for low cost items. I had this problem with a screwdriver the other day. It's so fast that it's just easier to order another screwdriver than to find the screwdriver you already own, which
But
I
this
feel
is not
awful
good for the
about.
environment.
No, it's terrible for everything, but it is growth, right? It's just there's a lot of screwdrivers now.
Guys, is Temu popping up in your first Google search results above Amazon? Because it is for me. And they're undercutting Amazon's prices by so much. I think it's real competition.
It's not competition. It's called government funded.
Guys, they closed the loophole.
Is it actually closed, or are they closing it?
We can't close anything in this country, Sam.
Yeah,
of course
that-
it's not closed.
It's pretty closed.
They're going to get another $1 trillion of goods through our borders before we do
Well, no,
anything.
the strategy they now do is they're just moving it all to Mexico, right? And then using NAFTA to
And
get
use
it in.
NAFTA? Oh,
yeah.
bullshit.
And so there's this whole thing. I mean, I actually do believe, Dave, you said this. I think this is actually basically right, which it turns out with tariffs and things like that, the system is too open and confusing. There's always a way around. There's always a way around. You just have to keep hunting the network.
All I know is Shein's trying to go public, and so for those who aren't instantly in the weeds of this topic, the China. Well, I'm gonna get in trouble.
China.
for
So
calling-
say it like
for
Trump.
calling
You
them-
just did it.
No,
Do it.
no,
Do it again.
I didn't mean to do that.
China.
Later, we can talk about nuclear things.
Shein would tell me they're not a
Nuclear.
Chinese company, so I'm trying to, represent all talking points on the side, but
Are they a Mexican company now? Is that the
no,
idea?
they're probably Singaporean or wherever. But anyway, these retailers that have relied on this loophole that allowed them not to pay taxes on very small shipments and have used it to propel all these inexpensive goods into the U.S. are going to have to pay some tax. Although I guess that was the Biden thing, although I don't know why Trump wouldn't continue it because he's not pro-China. Anyway, that's a good topic. That's not what we're talking about today, guys. There's been a lot happening. First, I want to say I am really happy I don't have to use my arms at the moment because I did so many pull-ups in my workout this morning that have you guys ever picked up a plate and dropped it?
No.
Sure.
I have lost usage of
Oh, you
my
don't mean a
arms.
lifting plate. You mean an actual
No,
dinner plate.
after, I don't know, it was arm day. And
Trainer Mike, good job.
but 4 hours, Like usually I was expecting it to hit me tomorrow.
Oh, 4 hours later. I thought you did 4 hours of arms.
No,
I was
no,
like,
no.
that's a lot.
Like 3 hours later.
You know, you need is some protein and some creatine.
So I did all those. I did Promex, and then I just ate 5 Oreos, and I hoped that would
That
make
is
the rest.
terrible nutrition.
I know, but it did actually help.
She deserves it after that workout.
But I'm up to benching 76% of my weight. So what when I get to 100, what do I get?
Wait, I want to compete with you.
I love
Can I
this.
compete? Can I join?
I'm not sure I want to get to 100, Brit. I just need function of my,
I don't think I can do
arms.
76 yet. You're clearly in the lead, but I would like to try to get there. So this gives me
Okay.
some incentive.
Okay, great. We'll compete on that. By
Okay.
end of 6 months from now, percentage of weight benching.
6 months. You're like 3. Come on.
3
6
months.
is a
Come
long
on.
time.
Let's get, tighter
Okay.
schedule.
We'll
Yeah.
see. But
End of
anyway,
year.
End of
End of
year.
year.
End of
End
year
of year.
bench
I got
competition.
this. I got
Oh,
it.
God.
Yeah. Jess and Brit go benching.
We could add in the cold plunge, although I'm pretty good at those. I just had to get that out of the way. I needed the listeners to know that my head is here, but the rest of me is not. All right. Okay. Another big week. Very briefly, I was talking to someone today and who runs a huge comms firm. And we were talking about the tech practice. And she was just like, business is back, baby. Things are firing. I mean,
Wow. What's firing?
it's well,
yeah,
just,
what's firing?
we
Yeah,
work
I
in
know.
venture capital.
I guess you
Crisis
really were. You
fund.
were talking to a PR firm. Everything's
that's
always
true.
firing.
Is it positive or negative?
No, but they were. She was saying that the level of business and pitching and just meetings is she hasn't seen this since 2020.
Well, the public markets are up a lot, and then everyone gets
Yeah.
happy because they're richer and they spend more money on shit.
Yeah.
To be clear, that still seems hyperbolic to me.
Yeah, I mean,
We also had a report this last week that venture capital deals are down pretty dramatically quarter over quarter.
Mm,
So it's
well-
not exactly true.
Venture is an important part of the ecosystem,
We like to think of ourselves as a leading indicator, Jess.
perhaps. I have a lot of data points, including conferences.
Way too many of those going on.
Guess there's so many conferences. I was literally invited to one 9 days from now today. I'm not going.
What? No, that's too last minute.
It's too last minute. PR is up. So I think there's a lot happening. And I do. And I think there's a lot happening in the city based on horrible traffic. So
That's true. I was in the city too many times last week.
let's talk about this for a second. I was taking an Uber to an airport yesterday, and the Uber driver did not have the tag for the fast pass lane. And I was like, I'll tip you more to go in the fastest lane. And sitting in the slow lane when you're paying an Uber is the worst experience imaginable. I don't understand how this is not they're.
but a week ago you told me you had cracked this.
Well, I had cracked it because I had an Uber driver who did have the tag, and I was like, I'll give you $20 to get in the faster lane, and he did it, and so I was psyched. But this one was like, I just don't have the tag, and I was Googling, I was using ChatGPT, being like, if you don't have the tag, you use the lane, what happens? And it was like, you get a citation. I'm like, I'm not gonna get this poor woman a citation. But but it was really upsetting. I just feel like the whole thing is you're trying to offer a good service that is 100% about driving someone fast somewhere, and they can't go in the fast lane when you're willing to pay. It makes no sense.
Is this an opportunity for Waymo to compete if all Waymos had fast lane tags?
I mean, absolutely, but they don't go on the highways.
They're going to go on the highway soon. They're already testing on the 101.
I will, if they, I would 100% move over to Waymo all the time if it would just go on the 101. I have no use for it because I don't travel internally in the city. But I love the idea.
I used Waymo this weekend and it's so amazing.
I also rode my first Waymo this week.
Jess was a Waymo virgin until a few
I-
days ago.
I had edited way too many articles about their challenges taking left turns over the last 10 years. And then finally, I was like, they're everywhere. They
So what do you
seem
think?
to be driving. Amazing. Absolutely
Wow.
amazing.
Jess is a
Like-
more.
I am so more Waymo. I don't,
It's so good.
as I was getting out of the car, I just felt the need to go, good job, Waymo.
Do you want to give it a tip? What if you could tip your Waymo?
They later asked me, I gave it a 5-star review and I put good job in it.
I do like the idea of different Waymos being tipped differently and getting rich. There's an old crypto narrative about why you needed digital wallets, and it was all about autonomous vehicles and the idea that they'd like need to pay for their own repairs.
Oh.
Good old crypto narratives.
Well, it's like a very cool vision of the future where it's always like, okay, well, like the car is going to need a wallet so it can pay for repairs. And if it makes enough money, then maybe you can buy upgrades to itself. But if it sucks, then like it's going to get junked, right? And this whole like what happens when you have truly autonomous agents. But just right now, you'd just be tipping, it could be imagining like Waymo Motors 484 is like our champion Waymo.
I really felt compelled. I just burst, and no one was listening. I trust because it told me that it wasn't listening. I also liked how you see what it sees, which my mom pointed out to me is pointless if you're headed for a crash because you can't really do anything about it. But like, it shows you this, simulation of what it's identifying, which is oddly reassuring.
Well, Teslas do that too.
Yeah, it's the same thing Teslas do. You guys,
My favorite is I love all the videos on the internet of people like tricking Teslas where they like put a bush on a tree. Have you seen these?
no.
Like Tesla camouflage. There's some hilarious internet videos.
We need a segment of this show, which is Sam's YouTube hole. Sam digs a YouTube hole.
Look, I'm Jewish. We just had Yom Kippur, and I will say that along with all of you, I did make a stream time limiting goal for myself on the year.
Woohoo! Sam listened to the pod last week, guys.
I did. I listened to it in an airport, and then I installed Instagram to upload a picture, and then I uninstalled it.
No, you don't have to go that far.
Well, no, that's I'm what's known as a super log outer now. We used to have these.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an old Facebook term.
That's it. Well, like they couldn't figure it out because all these like millions of people kept like fully we were like, why? And then reactivating, like, why are you doing this? And like, those are the original super log outers. So now I'm a super log outer of Instagram.
Wait, why were they
to stop
doing
themselves from using it? And then they go back on and they'd sign up. They wouldn't sign up. What they do is they'd reactivate their account.
This is a male thing, Brit. Women
No,
just.
it's not.
Women don't
it's
have time
definitely
for
not.
this shit.
No.
What?
No.
Okay. Married women with children don't have time for this shit.
Sam's right. It was more women than men. I mean, this ages me even more. I go back to when we didn't have the deactivate feature on Facebook, and we had to make the deactivate feature because of this problem.
Because of the super log outers.
Yeah, because they kept being like, please, can you recover my account? And we had to do it enough times manually that we were like, we need to automate this.
So guys, I'm actually back. Since I super logged out of Instagram, I still use it. I just will log in. I'll like download the app to use it and then delete it again. I now have been using Facebook more. There's some good stuff in there. They've got stories too.
It's like the lower quality.
So in terms of super logging out, Jess, how'd you sleep last night?
Oh, Sam, this is so cruel.
Well, she slept without you, so maybe she slept well.
So cool. Okay, so I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I get this push alert from our 8 Sleep. Prime your pod, right? And I saw this. I was like, is it out of water? Like, what does it need me to do?
Yeah, that's what happens.
And so I like press the thing, and then it logs me in, and then I'm like, whatever. I did not sleep well at all last night. And then this morning I find out.
Well, here's the situation. I set up the 8 Sleep in our ski home where I am doing an offsite. And 8 Sleep has not anticipated the use case where 2 people in the same family are sleeping in 2 different 8-seat beds at the same time. So like when you go and you're like, put the 8 Sleep on, it like the feature deactivates the other 8 Sleep.
Mateo, we're talking to you, man. We got to get this fixed.
So relatable right now. This is so relatable. Yeah.
This is such a 1% problem, you guys. Like all of our listeners are cringing right now.
I was excited that they at least let you put multiple 8 Sleeps on one account. I thought they had this nailed. But this product assumption, whatever junior product manager implemented this toggle so that when you activate one, it deactivates the other, like you're not helping. That was like a very bad assumption. Like it was clearly implemented by someone who is not married and does not realistically have 2 8 Sleeps.
You owe me 45 minutes of REM sleep.
No tip for you.
But what are we going to do tonight, Jess? Are we going to be like fighting over who's turning on the 8 Sleep? Like, how's this going to work?
Disconnect one from the internet.
This is where your status as the more technologically savvy really disadvantages me because I'm not sure. I'm cool. I'm just going to like crank down the AC in our room, which will obviously also affect our almost 3-year-old's room, which probably means he'll be coughing more and I won't sleep as well either. So I'm just gonna go to bed at 8:30. Fingers crossed.
This really is like the modern equivalent of like fighting over the covers. Is we're remote fighting over access to the
I'm
asleep.
not fighting. I get the bigger context. I just need to be prepared, and I need to adjust my sleep score.
In fairness to me, I actually thought I had, being the more technologically savvy one, figured out a way around this where I had both of them working. So I didn't intentionally screw up your REM sleep.
Sure, it's probably why I didn't bench 85% of my weight today, because I probably just you set me back. Okay, well, we're talking about Waymo, which is very exciting, folks. I think it's very exciting. I mean, for all of you who don't live in San Francisco or one of these other areas, you have not experienced it, but flawless. No notes on Waymo. Lots of big headlines around Tesla and Elon this week. I feel like, Moritz, you want to bring us up to speed as the Tesla family on the pod?
You wanting to tip the Waymo is actually a perfect transition, because I think the most fascinating thing from the Tesla event this week was the robotics that were on display.
The non-automated robotics that tanked the stock price because they weren't working.
Yeah, fine. Haters be haters, but like, you have to look at the Optimus robotics and have a little bit of respect for how incredible these robotics are. I think it has 22 degrees of motions in the hands. Like, they might have been being operated remotely, but like, we've never seen robots of this quality and capacity.
Well, I did. It's the Small World ride at Disney World.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
Dave and
come
I
on,
were
Sam.
just in Japan meeting with literal like robotics world leaders, Kawasaki, and we went to this like startup that's doing cooking robots. It was really impressive. And then now we see this, and it just seems like they're doing nothing.
Optimus is really impressive. Like, people can hate, but I think that Optimus and the robotics work that they're doing is like pretty extraordinary. And you have to kind of sit there and go, wow. I think you can have questions around the AI aspects of it. Obviously, that was not on display, but like, remote controlled robots of that quality, like, are pretty extraordinary.
And how does Elon think we're going to be using these robots?
I mean, the positioning at the event was that these robots will be affordable. I think he's been talking about them being less than $30,000. So call it the same price as a low cost car, and that you will use these robots in your everyday life. And the way they've been explaining them is around the house, cleaning up, doing laundry, these types of things. Who knows if that's actually true? I'm like less interested in that aspect of the vision and more just really kind of taken aback at the speed of innovation in these robotics that's happening right now.
I think it's a really interesting week for the Elon stuff, because like, look, and I mean, I've had a lot of fun with internet trolls on this one, but it's like the SpaceX stuff is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other piece of this, is like, that's robotics at very large scale, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's sweet.
it's unbelievable. Yeah.
And so there was a successful launch a couple of days ago, right? Landed back.
They caught a rocket booster with like a tower, and they can, in theory, kind of reset it. And which again is just, again, like, do you get to Mars? What do you do with it? Is it even economically that radical? There's all things you know about. It's freaking sweet, right? And real.
Yeah, from a pure engineering perspective, like, and people actually don't realize, Sam, how big that thing is. That thing's it's a 23-story building that they caught.
So here's the thing. That's sweet. But in the same week, you have what I've seen people on the internet calling securities fraud with the Tesla announcements, where again, like, Elon paints a very picture that's very exciting, but like, I mean, it's pretty deceptive, right? You kind of are like doing it for what looks like a great clip for X or for Instagram, but it's not real. And so like, for me, it's like, it's such a hard, I find Elon to be
But they said that. Are we talking about the robots? The robots, they were pretty clear about.
I'm talking about the juxtaposition. What I'm talking about is you have a real thing.
The third leg of the stool was the robo-taxi. So the other part of the announcement.
That to me seems kind of nonsense, but
But here's the thing. This is the problem with Elon. The problem I have is, like, again, I love the future stuff as much as anyone. He does real stuff, right? Like the SpaceX thing was freaking sweet. But then you have these completely fanciful small world Epcot Center demos, right, on the Tesla side. And then you have, interestingly, this crazy retail army, right, which can't invest in SpaceX because they're not accredited investors. They want to be in Planet Elon because, of course you do. It's inspiring. And they buy, yes, Dave, they do say it's teleoperated. But, you know and I know that they're doing it for the clip that you're going to put
Yeah.
on social media, where the kind of context of that is lost, and it just looks like you have a robot serving a beer or something, right? And so it's just like it's so frustrating.
But that's why
right?
I'm focused on, like, we're not fooled by any of this, Sam. So I'm focused on what was impressive. And the thing that was impressive is the robotics. Like, the robotics are actually impressive, out of context on X or Instagram video or not. The robotics are pretty incredible. And like, I think that's like worth sort of noticing that we're at this point in robotics that's actually kind of amazing right now. And it's worth just pointing out.
But again, I think it's just really difficult, because I think you have the situation where the Tesla story, from my perspective, is a story of this doesn't actually work great as a business. So look at this new shiny object, right? It's like, okay, like electric cars not growing as fast as we thought. We're losing market share, which of course you are, because you started the market. But like, a lot of people are going to make them. Oh, look at this autonomy thing. It's like, oh, that's not going to happen. Look at this robotic thing. It's like this constant game of like, get people excited about this thing by pointing to the next shiny object to try to keep people frothing from like this like mob support the future mentality. And it's really frustrating. I mean, if it was all just for show, you'd be like, ugh, like disgusting. The problem is you turn around, you're like, actually, the rocket stuff isn't. The rocket stuff is freaking sweet. Starlink's amazing. And so like that just creates this very, I think, annoying and confounding picture of like technology and what's real and what's not. Because, on one hand, like, you want the vision. I love the optimism in certain ways. It is very deceptive, right? I think, right? And like, I think on the Tesla side, but in the SpaceX is like, look, you can argue about how big the market is for space and the Mars stuff, but like, it's a great vision. It's a great mission. And my God, they can catch a huge 20-story building with a tower. And like, that's sweet.
Okay, I have two things to say. One is I agree with all that it's confusing and all the things. However, the robo-van is actually, I think, way more exciting than the robo-taxi. I think because it can seat up to 20 people, but it can also be like its own retail space. Like, the amount of square footage you have in that thing creates like businesses on wheels. You can imagine like restaurants on wheels, like all these different things. I think entrepreneurially, that's really interesting.
Ice cream truck, yeah.
Well, okay. So first of all the internet reporting I've been doing looking at is everyone thinks they're going to be rolling brothels. Everyone says this is a rolling brothel.
I didn't see that.
Of course, that's where your internet reporting goes.
I was going to
Sam.
say the internet reporting I've been doing should really put all
My
our hairs on it.
My sleuthing on the social networks.
Okay, I think we're missing some key context. If we should go back to that, there was this Tesla announcement of the robo-taxi where Elon demoed, was it called the robo-van? These are autonomous vehicles, right? And actually a huge question overhanging the Tesla business over the last 12 months has been, there was a report that Elon was going to discontinue this smaller, cheaper kind of autonomous vehicle version of a Tesla that would be used in fleets, hence the robo-taxi nomenclature. So this was supposed to be like a big reveal. And because he had talked about it, people were expecting details on launch and timing. And I think part of the disappointment was that information. I don't think he gave any
it was
of
a
that.
reveal of a plan, not of a product, right?
Well, no, the plan is a very strong word. I'd say it's a reveal of a vision.
I mean, I think that there's actually 4 things at play here, though, which, there's the 3 things that they've announced, like you said, Jess, the robo-taxi, the robo-van, and then the robot itself, Optimus. But there's this 4th thing going on, which there is some reporting on, but I think is worth pointing out, which is that Tesla has also assembled the largest supercomputer in the history of humanity. That's a Tesla asset that is the GPU cluster that they've put together. And on top of that, they also have the most powerful, I guess you could call it an edge inference computer, which is what powers the compute on the cars as well as in the robot. And so they're actually doing silicone and compute level innovation that a lot of people aren't talking about. And so to me, like, the underlying big question story is not dissimilar to where perhaps Meta was when Meta's stock took a dive and they started investing in AI infrastructure. And now they're like really surging ahead because of their competitive advantage in AI infrastructure. Like, you could argue that Tesla, they're presenting a vision not dissimilar to what Zuck presented with the metaverse, where everybody was highly skeptical. But when you actually look at the brass tacks balance sheet and where the money's going, it's going into AI infrastructure and the creation of compute
but Meta has a much more direct way to monetize that.
Maybe.
Right? Like, oh, for sure. Much more direct, right? Like, are you kidding? Like the reason people are bulled up on Meta from a financial perspective is it is unbelievably clear how they turn the crank using LLMs and AI, quote unquote, to make more money. Like, it's just the straightest path you could possibly imagine around ads, right? Everything else is considered basically somewhere between a tax and option value for the future, right? The problem with the Tesla story is that the core business is not a great business, and they're continuously trying to point at a new shiny object to kind of justify the vision of the future. Again, like, in some ways I don't grudge them that. I wish that there was more. I mean, I don't know. I do wish there was
Isn't
more
it as
honesty.
simple as rides, though, Sam? I mean, at the end of the day, like, you're basically selling transportation, right? You're selling a ride.
That's in theory, if they could deliver on that. They're not even close.
Well, but I'm not talking about the robo-taxi. I'm talking about buying a car. You know, you're outlaying whatever your upfront cost is. You amortize that, you burn it down. You're basically paying per ride, even with their current business model. And then in the future, maybe you're literally paying per ride.
No, I understand. It's very hand-wavy. I mean, the reality is like, right now there's a difference between saying I have an AI story where literally every quarter I can make my ads more efficient, I can make my copy more efficient, I can make my targeting more efficient. It's the core of what LLMs can drive. There's no science fiction at all to it. Like, literally, like, innovation could stop. A SoFon could come tomorrow, right? And Facebook would make absolute bank quarter over quarter for the foreseeable future doing what is obvious.
I think that's also true of like Google. Well, Google has some other issues.
Google maybe, but the problem is they have some competitive pressures on top of it. Like, they also have risks at it, right? Like, I think the nice part about Meta is it's all upside. Then you have the infrastructure providers with AI who are kind of banking on other people figuring out how to use it to make money or save enough money to justify the infrastructure spends. And the Tesla thing is, like, it's cool that they have the technical chops to do it, but how these pieces all come together and like make money is just really hand wavy, right? And it doesn't mean that Elon has great access to financing. He's proven long-term staying power, and he does great stuff at places like SpaceX. But just Tesla, particularly to me, has always felt so deeply hand wavy on this stuff, right? Like, you could have told the same story 10 years ago about how all these things eventually intersect.
I was just going to say, going back to Waymo, there were many points over the last 10 years where the words out of their mouth made no sense. And, you were right to be extraordinarily skeptical. I mean, I think we had a story years ago entitled The Waymo Money Pit, and it was literally quantifying like all the money that had gone, at that time to waste or seemingly waste. And so that's technology, Sam, right? And I think
it's hard technology, hardware technology in particular. Like, you just have long time periods where you've got to wait, for the thing to come out.
To be clear, I'm not saying that Elon is going to deliver on everything he said. I'm not saying like just give him time and he's gonna hit all these things. Like, he's not. But like, it's also completely futile to try and say, like, to put him in a box of one thing or another.
To a point, I just think there's a very big difference between being a private company effectively doing research, which is how Waymo operated, right? And saying, yeah, we can take the 20-year lead time and like was chip, versus a strategy which basically is a public company strategy of me support a stock price and kind of doing a living plus type narrative, right, repeatedly, where versus like being rational. And like, I just don't think it's a very strong fiduciary thing, but it does work in an era of meme stocks and in a place where you have a big meme army of retail investors and people who are crazy people like Cathie Woods who are willing to kind of buy and repeat the narrative, right?
Here's a question, Sam. How would you build this company if you were building Tesla? Like, if you were a company where you're trying to do really difficult hardware innovation, you're trying to deliver cars to people, be a front edge innovator, like, how would you go about it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dave, because I think Tesla finds itself in this very precarious place, which is that its stock price makes no sense, right? And so if you think about, you need the stock price to stay high, right? Not just because you're a pay package or whatever else. I think it's a very dangerous place to be because it's completely irrationally priced as a car company, right? Which is why it's trying to be not a car company. And I think the honest answer is it would be great if they could figure out how to double down, compete to make a cheap, efficient electric car, get really good at the manufacturing, like do their core knitting, right, and do it well. Because I think what they're doing, but I worry that what they're doing is not actually operating as like a company trying to drive for efficiency in what they do. Instead, they're operating as a financial institution trying to support a narrative and a stock price, right? And like, unfortunately, those things are supposed to align, but they don't in this case, right? It's almost like saying, what would you do if you're GameStop, right? Where like the stock price has absolutely nothing to do with the service you deliver. Like, well, what do? On one hand, you focus on the actual business you're in, right? On the other hand, you're a meme, right? And so if you actually deliver against the core profitability and drive the business, it's not clear how that has anything to do or supports your investor stock price, et cetera, et cetera.
So does that make, a lot of people this week have been saying Elon is the greatest entrepreneur, greatest living entrepreneur, maybe even the greatest entrepreneur of all time. Is what you're saying is that he's actually just one of the greatest venture capitalists of all time?
Well, I think he understood ZERP better than anyone.
Yeah.
I think he is a better marketer than anyone in the history of the world, right? I think those are both absolutely true statements. I think he's done a very good job at selecting businesses that he uniquely, because of his skill set around ZERP and capital raising and storytelling, could raise against in otherwise non-competitive sectors, right? Like, I think that's been the magic of Elon, and I give him credit for it. I mean, again, like, there's cool stuff that's come out of it. I love my Starlink, right? I think what he's doing is cool, but it is very far afield from traditional capitalism entrepreneurship, right? And I don't think Elon exists in a non-ZERP world, right? Is what I would basically say.
What's hard to grok about all of this is the engineering, as like a person who loves thinking about engineering and sort of hobbying in engineering, like the engineering that they're doing in all of these organizations is really amazing. If you sort of abstract away, to your point, the finance and the marketing and the frustrating stuff, every time I see one of these things, I mean, the robo van and the robo taxi, I can't really tell what's going on. But when I stare at the robot itself, the GPU data center, and the rockets, it's just incredible engineering.
Totally.
You have to. The question that I always ask is like, how can we have more of this? Like, why does this only exist in these there's not very many places you can point at that you see this level of engineering, like quality happening. And I keep asking myself, like, what is it about American culture that can only produce this in a few places at once? Like, why can't we have more super high quality engineering in more places?
Well, I think for what it's worth, it's a combination of narrative and ZERP, right? Which is like, you get all the people together because you can afford to, in a way that without ZERP you just couldn't afford, right? So like, I mean, America made that choice in some ways with financial policy to do that. The second thing, which, look, you take SpaceX. Like, why is SpaceX versus like Boeing screwing up their capsules and no one else can build anything, right? I do think that part of it is that Elon did a very good job selecting places to build where the cultures were so bad at the competitors that he could kind of be a dick and also push people really hard, and the working environment didn't have to be that great. Because if you want to work on rockets, you kind of have to work at SpaceX, right? So you create these self-fulfilling cultures in engineering where, like, if you're like, people love space. It's like, if you're an engineer and you love space, like, you don't really have that many options.
And he attracts a lot of, incredible talent. Like, they love space and they love working with the kinds of people they're working with.
Yeah, and I guess cars are very similar, right? Like, if you're a really passionate car person and you want to work on cars and you're in America, there aren't that many options if you want to be on the front end of innovation in it anyway.
Well, and just in that culture where you get paid pretty well and like you're around other switches, it's basically like these self-fulfilling prophecies of culture where, like, where you basically have an unfair advantage competing for talent because, again, it's very different than, for instance, working at an internet company, right? Where there's just like a lot of good places you can work with a lot of good people. The big platforms, the Googles, the Metas, still do in some ways have an advantage because they have such good people that good people want to work with good people, and that becomes self-fulfilling. But I think it's super intense in a thing like space because, like, what are you going to do? Like, it's very hard to start a competing space company. You're not going to have like a bunch of startups. I mean, there actually are now, but like there weren't. Like,
yeah, but they're not going after the main line. Like, all the, you and I are both seeing tons of the space stuff, but they're not going after the rockets.
What about the tunnels? Have you guys been following his tunnel company? They just did a demo of the Vegas Loop. There was additional news that came out in the last few days after the robot demos and the amazing SpaceX rocket landing of like the Vegas loop, and it's a Tesla only tunnel, and it's actually a thing. I didn't think this was real.
But I think this is the thing about, again, like what's so frustrating about Planet Elon, right? Is like, look, that should not be a thing, right? Neither should Neuralink. Neither should a bunch of stuff he's working on. But you
It's
have this
venture
weird
capital,
dynamic.
Sam. Come on.
But it's not. But it's not even that. It's this weird dynamic that's developed because he's the kind of key person in all these companies where people fund these things, or his dalliances, even Twitter, right, for access to the actually good stuff. And so you end up in this weird zone where, like, I'd actually argue from a capitalist perspective, you're misallocating a lot of resources, a lot of losses, because basically people are like, these banks are like, sure, Elon, we'll fund your stupid Twitter thing, even if you drive it.
I was going to say the Twitter thing being the best example.
Yeah, like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't care. We'll lose money on that because, my God, do we want the SpaceX IPO, right? And like, so I just think it like causes a lot of misallocated capital and resources and people and attention.
For what it's worth, Sam, that same thing applies not just to the capital, but to the lawyers, to the people, to regulators, to lobbyists, right? I mean, it's the same dynamic where proximity to certain things causes all sorts of people to get close to him and protect him. I mean, I forget which of the leaks, but there were leaks, I don't know, some documents that came out or in court cases, and the bankers around Twitter, maybe I believe this was the case, but like, the texts between both what you were saying, the investors that were like instantly backing him. I think there was one with like Mark Andreessen telling his team that like they didn't need approval for it or something. And then other banks that were just sort of like, we need to fund this deal. We need to help fund this deal for exactly that reason. So I think it's the investors, but it's also like the whole ecosystem. Reporters, I just saw some taking their kids to the rocket launch and stuff like that.
And it's sweet. I mean, I just think it's this interesting thing about, like, we'll call it late capitalism or the rise of cult capitalism or the Dogecoin bullshit or whatever.
When you say, can I just pause? When you say late capitalism, like, why do you think we're in late? Like, are we at the end of capitalism?
It's like a meme that comes from the TED world.
I know, but if we just throw that around, like, that's like the most interesting thing you've said. So let's pause on that.
Yeah, Sam, what conferences have you been at? Sounds like they're low quality.
He was golfing a couple of weeks ago, so
Sam's gone intellectually down market in a way I don't expect right now.
I'm slumming it. I'm hanging out. I'm learning. Look, I mean, I'm a huge believer in capitalism. I love capitalism. I love freedom. Right. I think there's a lot of great principles there. When I think about late capitalism, I think there's like a few things that come to mind. The one is, which I think is true, is it's gotten really random reward oriented in a lot of ways, right? And so I think about like what happened in COVID. You think about people around cryptocurrency. You think about a lot of the like meme stocks. Like, I consider memes like a very late capitalism thing, where like there's supposed to be this like real discipline around profit and efficiency and like ways in the APIs of how we interact with each other around capitalism. And I think they're just getting really funky and breaking down in a bunch of places. That cause people to like lose faith in capitalism, right?
But Sam, is it late capitalism or is it just late cycle, right? Like, at the end of the day, the meme stocks and the ZERP stuff, it was just like late. It was late in this last Fed cycle.
Maybe
it was
but you
also pandemic, right? Once in a century.
Like, you look at our money printing, right, in the U.S. and like this game where the reserve, like, and this out of control debt situation, and you're just like, this is not how capitalism is supposed to work with discipline and balanced budgets. And I just think it's like, again, I don't think it's irrecoverable. Like, I believe in these principles and like I think there's realness there. But I do think, when I think about young people in particular, and you think about the lotteryification of careers, right? Which I think has happened, and the way people treat capitalism and they treat their jobs and they treat work. Like, I understand why a lot of people are super demoralized, right, by the current state of things. And I don't think it's pure capitalism anymore. I think you end up with these cults. I think you end up with weird things where people do favors for each other in the Elon sense. I don't know. I just think it's late capitalism.
Yeah, when you say that, I think like late Roman Empire and like, literally it's certainly a shift in capitalism, but late implies like proximate to the end.
I do kind of believe that current course and speed leads us away from healthy, pure capitalism right? And into a place where people don't really trust the rules. There's a lot of random outcomes. They don't want to work that hard because they don't really understand what the outcomes are. There's weird regulation. We print money in a way that doesn't really make sense. These all things all do lead up to me to decline unless we're able to like respark it.
My favorite interview tidbit with Elon last week that I saw was that it took them more time to get the approval to do the launch of the rocket that they launched last week than it took them to actually build the rocket. So they built a 25-story building size rocket with 33 engines faster than it took to get one piece of paper to move from one desk to the other in the US government.
Which is a great tweet and probably a problem. But like, look, you are also launching a 30-story building into space. I mean, like, you kind of want to check a few things.
Some caution would be warranted.
Still.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of great stuff. The internet has, there's so many things that I think are supercharged about our world and exciting. But I do think that when you just think about even like openness and globalization, like there's an argument, you can call it a cycle, or you can call it the late end of an interesting period. But like, it does seem like things are in a weird place.
So to bring this full circle, would you guys say you're more Waymo or more Tesla?
Great
after
question.
the last
Waymo.
Ooh.
Well, I have absolutely no idea how good a business Waymo is.
Yeah, nobody seems to know.
Like, I assume that these cars are ridiculously expensive and they haven't figured out the service. Like, I just assume, it's an incredible, I have no idea how much they're losing per ride.
Wildly different architecture, too. I think I saw an interview with the Waymo, one of the key Waymo people last week, and they were saying that the sheer amount of C code that runs these things is extraordinary. So they're also wildly different architectures.
Totally. So if you told me that Waymo ends up being the Betamax to like some, camera only, vision only VHS or some stuff, and like sure, I have no idea.
I don't know, guys. I think that is absolutely the question, the money pit. The Waymo money pit is still the Waymo money pit. Waymo was so expensive that Larry Page could not convince anyone at Google to let them keep it fully on their books. So they had to create Alphabet so they could get outside investors in Waymo. Like, that is like,
isn't it like
probably
$500K a car or more?
I don't know. But I gotta say, like, this completely non-scientific thing, sometimes you just get a feeling, guys. This is, 20 years in tech reporting. And the feeling, like, I also got that feeling today because Amazon has come out with a color Kindle. And it just made me happy. I don't even need a color Kindle.
Yeah, why do you want a colored Kindle?
The books.
That is the question I was wondering. I'm like, why do I need color?
No, I don't need a color Kindle, but I love
just for the
my
covers.
Kindle. I just love it. I love being able to download a book that someone recommends or that I want to read, and it really helps me relax and think, and knowing that I can do that at any point is a source of great solitude to me.
How are you going to feel when your Kindle has a 5G chip and Instagram videos on it?
Yeah, exactly.
I won't. Everyone, like, I've been tweeting this because I feel very strongly about my Kindle. And I get nervous when I don't know where it is. And I actually have a backup on.
Did you see that I got a Kindle again?
Yeah, I did. It's great.
How many Kindles do you have?
So many Kindles.
I just have one, and then I have my backup one. They're not the most expensive device in the world. I even have the small one. I haven't gone crazy.
I will say I've started buying paperbacks again, though, because I'm so sick that I can't buy Kindle stuff in the app on my iPhone. So I literally just gone back to paperbacks.
Well, or you can buy it on your Kindle, vertically integrated.
Yeah, but it's like far away. My phone is in my hand.
Well, yeah, but you're doing less screen time. So hello, Kindle. But then this is relevant because I had the same feeling in the Waymo. I did. It's just like,
it's your gut intuition telling you what's going to work in this
it's like the first time I used Google Maps or just these things. And again,
it feels like magic.
I'm the biggest critic of half of these companies in terms of their, so I'm not like, or the toughest, I would say, right? In asking these questions, but you can't ignore just like very cool technology experiences. And so I'm long Waymo because I think it is that. And I think if you step back about the difficulty of what they pulled off, I think they'll figure it out. I really do.
I hope so. Like, I think they probably will on some timeline. But again, like, this goes back to the whole like late capitalism thing, right?
Whether
Which
it's
is just, like,
funded is a different question.
well,
right?
and like what the like everything
Yeah.
comes down to a discount rate and like on what timeline and like with what risks, and like it's very easy to articulate an extremely long-term vision of the future, right? It's very easy, and all you're doing is ripping off science fiction. Elon mostly just reads science fiction and says the things that are in it with some nice videos, and like there's value in that, but like that's the easy part. Then there's the can you make it at all, which again is incredibly hard, but like is very different than can you deploy it efficiently at scale, and like historically, especially in our lifetimes, because of Moore's law, we've had this very direct relationship between it is possible at all to like it's deployed at scale and amazing and everywhere. Like we in our brains are wired for that, and like it could hold up. Like there's the reasons to believe it could, but it also doesn't necessarily hold up in a lot of places. And people have gotten really good at fake demos.
Is there a recent example of something that was a fake demo that just like
VTOLs, like every VTOL ever.
VTOL's a great example, yeah.
I mean, are the VTOLs fake demos, or are they just like a brute force demo that's never going to see reality because of the sheer cost to produce one of these things?
And VTOLs are the vertical takeoff and landing planes.
But Dave, I mean, it would have been very easy for Elon to have a teleoperated VTOL, just so we have a teleoperated robot, and people teleoperated VTOL rides, and like the future, right? Like it just, you know what I mean? Like it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, but I guess I was just saying none of these VTOL companies are doing this right now. Like they're not doing fake demos.
No, they have. I mean, I was invited to one in the desert like years ago.
That was so scary. It was a little nerve-wracking.
Were you in it?
No, Jess wouldn't let me go.
Good call, Jess.
There's a lot of NDAs involved. Anyway, the basic point is like these things do exist. It's just an interesting question of like the Tesla stories. Again, they go back to that part is like it's okay. You can tell a lot of cool stories and fake the demos, right? And we can be excited that this might be the future, and like we should be. Like people love Epcot Center too, right? But like the line between that and reality is like TBD. I'd argue the Waymo thing is really interesting because it is much closer to real. Like that works, right? And like that's amazing, right? But again, the question is like how far are we from able to deploy these at scale, whatever. I'm not saying it won't happen, it will. But the question of like on what timeline and with what financial and like how does the LiDAR play out? Is it going to be the same cost curve you expect? How does that compare with a camera only solution? These are all just timeline intersection questions, right?
Yeah. And I think also that raises the great point of like what markets they'll end up serving and if certain things will exist as really high-end niche alternatives versus like democratizing the world as we know it, right? Which is sort of the cost business model piece.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about like even just on a global basis, it's like let's pretend these cars cost $500,000, right? And what does it cost to like staff a driver for a year? $50K in the US? You know what I mean? Like whatever the numbers end up being. Like you talk about that, then you go to a place like India, right? And you're like, well, now you have to compete with something that's like 100, much cheaper. Like it's just going to be a really interesting, lumpy rollout. And again, I love the tech, I love the future, I love the vision, but it is complicated.
I think it'd be different than that because you can use them 24/7 versus like 10 hours.
No,
Anyway,
maybe.
I would argue the math a bit.
I look forward to my next Waymo.
Will you send your kids in a Waymo
Yes.
without you?
I'm not allowed to do that, and I am rule following.
Well, but we know of some schools in San Francisco that now have Waymo drop-off rules for the kids.
They do. They're like, drop them off in this place.
People, some of the hoity-toity San Francisco schools are now developing Waymo drop-off practices for
Guys,
kids.
Waymo plus AirTags. Although if you call the Waymo, do you need
Life
the you don't need the
360,
AirTag?
guys. Life
Oh, I'm
360.
sorry. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Brit.
is what you
Yes.
mean. And Tile.
But if my kids don't have phones, I just want to tag
You're
them.
gonna put a Tile in their backpack.
Got it. Do you use Life 360 on Tile?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's all
Um,
connected.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we did that. We nailed the future. Anything else cooking? Any fun things you guys are looking forward to? We enjoyed seeing Larry David in San Francisco, I got to say.
Was it funny?
It's not particularly useful for all of you now listening who would have liked to go hear Larry David, but he was funny.
He's the answer. He's like, he is
It's
the
true.
right human.
He's the best.
I can't even tell a joke he told, right?
It was my
can-
birthday, and we had other Yeah.
Dave, happy birthday! I had
We
a whole
had
text
sushi
message
plans.
that I never sent. I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
Well,
I
nice
did
of you
write
to send
it.
it.
I just didn't know it was your birthday.
GPT
Happy
didn't write
birthday.
it for you?
No, I can't send it now because that looks lame. But a very happy birthday. What did you do, Dave?
Went to dinner with my family.
Did you get an email from Oren?
Yes, I did.
Of course you did.
Oren was first as always, and he said nice things about the pod. So appreciate
the
you,
goat.
Oren.
Thank you, Oren.
The Oren bot of I know everyone's anniversary and birthday, and I just like will diligently make sure that the email gets fired every time is one of the great joys.
It's pretty great. Yeah, I agree.
It's great. Another year, Dave. Another year.
Mhm.
Well, I hope it's a great one. We are grateful for you. Yeah. Anything else cooking? Anything? I mean, Larry David was just so good. I think they wouldn't let us like have our phones, which makes me think it will come to a television screen near you.
I've been showing people. I've been really enjoying the Meta glasses.
I was literally just gonna say the same thing, Sam.
Oh,
like,
gosh.
I really think the Meta glasses are the breakthrough tech product of the year.
I now have 2 pairs because they sometimes run out of batteries. But I've been like showing them to people.
2 8 sleeps, 2 Meta glasses, 2 Kindles.
Meta is set up for 2 pairs. Unfortunately, they will not let you have more than 2. But so you're set up for them,
Yeah.
and they're great for phone calls. People love the music. I think they're amazing in airports. Walking through airports
Yeah.
with those on is like an absolute joy because you can take calls, you can listen to music, but you also like can still talk to TSA.
But you don't feel kind of douchey wearing sunglasses in the airport?
Nope. That is the least douchey part about me.
Do you wear the sunglasses ones or do you have the clear lens ones?
Well, they're all transition lenses now. I think, right? I have the transition, which I think is like you kind of need.
Oh,
Right? Like
no.
that was when it was pure sunglasses. Is kind of a problem.
Oh, I
right?
don't have the transition lens ones.
What I've learned
need to
about
get
Sam
those.
today is he always needs to buy his tech in 2s. So 2 8 sleeps, 2 Kindles, 2 Meta glasses.
But you know why? It's because of another great science fiction movie, Contact.
Hmm.
First rule of international finance: why buy one when you can buy 2 for twice the price?
Oh man.
I hope your ads get targeted to you differently now that we've talked about this and people
Mhm.
know.
I actually, Jess, you have something coming to you that I bought in double, because I bought his and hers today when I
This could be
downloaded.
so many things, people. Yes.
I downloaded Instagram to post something and then deleted it, but saw an ad in the middle.
I was going to say, when you said that, I was like, our UPS guy is going to be out of a job if you're not on Instagram.
Well, I will say one thing that's amazing about this Instagram download, do things, download, delete, repeat is I'm not actually such a good decision. Is they've made it so easy to stay logged in even when you delete the app that it really isn't that hard to delete the app. So it's a very interesting trade, right? Because they've made it like too easy to delete and reinstall. I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, are you saying what you ordered, or is it top secret?
You're gonna like it, I think.
Uh-oh.
It's his and hers.
That could be so many weird things.
I'll give you
Sam.
this. It's something we can wear them on the pod together.
Oh my God.
That could also be so many things for your style
No,
preferences. on
it
the pod.
actually can't. This really. Sam, I also got 2 of something that you'll like, which is the Lingo glucose monitor
Oh
tracking.
God, here we go.
Have you guys tried those?
No, I need to do it. I've been meaning
This
to.
continuous glucose monitoring.
Yeah.
You know, I did that.
I've done it before.
Yeah, I did it before our son Lion was born, and then he was in the you were giving birth to him in the hospital, and I was like
yeah.
wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and I was like, this seems wrong, so I took it off, and then
Yeah,
I never
because
put it back
clearly
on.
monitoring your health in that situation was our
Well,
top
I wasn't going to
priority.
show you my
Yeah.
score while you were giving birth. You know,
No. Wow.
that seems like a bad trade.
Wow. Good job. Yeah, that would have upset me.
See, I am thoughtful.
Very thoughtful. Okay, well, it is. Brit, we should be keeping lists because we're getting to that holiday shopping season, and
We need to do a product list. We got to start doing predictions soon. There's a lot we got to get going with. It's holiday season's basic. It's already like there's already Christmas decor in a lot of the stores. So we got to get moving.
oh, okay.
I've got the entire Slow Ventures team here, so I got to get back to doing our once a decade planning, where we try to decide what it is that we do here.
You're planning the future of the next 10 years in venture capital. Good.
No.
luck.
We're literally just sitting down and being like, when we buy something, we should write things down.
Oh, you're planning how to run an entity. Good job. Slow clap.
People are trying to get us to use a CRM. You know what that is?
Oh, I've heard of one of those before.
But Sam, you can just use the blockchain.
Yeah, we put it all on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm also going to do some 2025 planning. So, with that, we should thank our great listeners, our commenters, our back channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please share it, give reviews, tell your friends, and we'll see you here next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.